Hi everyone and welcome back to the FPL Family YouTube channel. Now today I'm going to talk about one of the big things that is going on in the FPL community right now, and that is deciding which of the Chelsea defenders you are going to invest in for your FPL teams. Now that Chelsea defence looks really attractive because of course they have a beautiful run of fixtures coming up where there should be plenty of opportunities for clean sheets. But the underlying stats do actually suggest that the Chelsea defence has been a little bit lucky and maybe should have conceded more goals than they have so far. So actually, when it comes to picking a Chelsea defender, we do want to be getting somebody in because the clean sheets look likely in the fixtures. But is it worth that risk of trying to get somebody that has a little bit more attacking threat? So I'm going to take a look at the Chelsea defenders and try to assess which one I think you should be investing in, because I do think that there is scope for going for the double up in defence. But actually, if you want to double up anywhere, the Man City defence probably looks like the one to do that with. So I'm going to be trying to pick out one Chelsea defender as if I have no bias and as if I don't own a Chelsea defender at all. So forgetting that I own Rudiger and looking at all of them from a level playing field to work out which one you should be investing in if you are on your wild card. Now let's start then by having a little look at some of the key kind of assets. So let's have a little think about the number of attempts on goal that they've had. So we can see from this list of Chelsea defenders here that it is, of course, Marcus Alonso who has had the most attempts so far this season with 11. That's interestingly followed by Rudiger in second place, who's had 6 goal attempts so far this season. Then we have Chilwell and Reece James coming in with 4 each. Now, when we have a little look at those across the board then, it's interesting obviously that Alonso has only played 6 games, obviously missed out in the last one, was replaced in that one by Chilwell, but still has had the most attempts on goal. And that's not really surprising. Of all of the Chelsea defenders, he is definitely the one that is the most attacking in terms of goal threat. And that is shown, of course, there by the attempts on goal. And it's also shown by the attempts on goal that he's had in the box and also by the big chances that he's had. He's had 1, which is level actually, as you can see, with Chilwell, Reece James and Aspella Quetta. So Alonso up there for chances and attempts that he's had. But it's really interesting for me to see Rudiger in there in second because, of course, he is slightly cheaper than the others in coming in at 5.7. So you're going to save you a little bit of money. That saving could be useful elsewhere. And I think one of the concerns with going with Rudiger was that you were going to lose the attacking threat that you would get with, say, Alonso. And it's quite clear from those attempt stats that, yes, you will lose a chunk of those underlying goal threat stats, but there is still some there. And, you know, has played, as you can see there, just he and Aspella Quetta having played all 7 of those games. Now, Reece James maybe would have played more than he has, but through that injury that he's had, and of course we don't yet know how soon he is going to be coming back from injury. So that kind of makes me fall into the category of thinking maybe it's Rudiger or Alonso of those two, because Aspella Quetta is right down there with attempts on goal with just 2. Doesn't exactly fill me with confidence in terms of goal threat. But then when we have a look at some of the other underlying stats that we have available, we can see Aspella Quetta doing a lot better. So in that second box there at the bottom, Aspella Quetta right at the top there for penalty area touches with 16, followed by Alonso with 15, and then Reece James obviously there with 10. Now, when we have a little look at those guys then, we can say, well, whilst Aspella Quetta hasn't necessarily been getting the goal attempts that we've seen from, say, Alonso and from Rudiger, what we are seeing is being in the right place in comparison to Rudiger, who, although has had, as we've seen a minute ago, those 6 attempts on goal, he's actually only had 5 penalty area touches. So again, it's just something to bear in mind when we're trying to make those decisions. One underlying stat can make you want to do one thing and another underlying stat can make you want to do another. And it was this decision that was really difficult for me last week with Aspella Quetta and with Rudiger, because when you look at the underlying stats, they're quite conflicted. One of them better for penalty area touches, suggesting that he's in all the right places. One of them better for goal attempts, suggesting that he's getting more opportunities, even though he's in those places less often than some of his other teammates are. So Aspilicueta sitting up there at the top, and then of course Alonso in second. Now, if you'd have asked me a week ago when I was looking at these, Aspilicueta or Alonso on that basis, I would have gone with Aspilicueta simply because I was worried about Alonso. I'm even more worried about Alonso now because, as we can see there, Chilwell's only had one appearance so far this season, and that was of course in game week 7, but he's had 7 penalty area touches, which puts him 4th on that list. And then when we flick back to the number of attempts that he's had, we can see Chilwell up there with 4 in 3rd place, tied with Reece James, again just from that one appearance. So all of these things suggesting actually that Chilwell's positions and his performance in game week 7 were just as good, if not slightly better, than what we've been seeing from Alonso over the season so far. But the risk and reward factor with those two is quite extreme. If you do want to go with one of those two players, then you do have the risk of them getting benched. And it's maybe that would make me want to go for a little bit more of a security-based option with the likes of maybe Aspilicueta or Rudiger. And we have a little look then at the rest of these stats. Then we can have a look at their appearances and the number of minutes that they've been playing. And as we can see, it's only Aspilicueta and Rudiger that have played every minute or played every game so far, and Aspilicueta hasn't played every minute. So we can start to kind of make judgments on these players. So if we want security, we're going Rudiger, maybe Alonso because he's up there too because he's had those 7 starts. If we want goal threat, then we're going to go Alonso, maybe Rudiger, because he's in 2nd place for goal threat. If we want to go penalty area touches, it's Aspilicueta and it's Alonso. If we want to go for clean sheets, it's Alonso and Rudiger because they've kept 4, whereas the others have kept slightly less. So again, these are all kind of conversations and they're all dilemmas that we have to make. So when we look at these different underlying stats in the Fantasy Football Scout members area, we then have to kind of pull them apart and work out which ones we want to choose to pay more attention to, if you like. So then when we have a little look at the heat map, so I've only got the heat maps for 3 of them because I think in reality these are the 3 that you're going to end up choosing between. So do you want to go with the safety bet, which is Rudiger, whose heat map is there in the centre, or do you want to go with Marcos Alonso, who definitely has more route to points in terms of, you can see the heat maps of the corners in his heat map over there? Or do you want to go for Aspilicueta, who is a bit more of an all-rounder, can play in a variety of positions, and of course the captain's armband on him makes him feel a little bit more safe. So he feels a lot safer than Alonso, but maybe not quite as safe as Rudiger. What's interesting is that you can see from Aspilicueta and Alonso's heat maps how much they hug those touch lines. And of course, I've already mentioned the route to points for Alonso, whereas Rudiger is a little bit more all over. We're starting to see, and Lee was talking about this in our last live stream, we start to see Rudiger just go on some runs occasionally. And you can see that happening through slightly more central positions on the pitch than the other two get. So that's an interesting way to look at it. And if you go and have a little look at the new Fantasy Football Scout members area, you can find these lovely radar graphs. Now, I'm a big fan of a radar graph because I think they show you a lot without necessarily having to dig through these underlying stats. So basically what they do is they create these radar stats using all of the data that we have in the tables, and it gives you a bit of a comparison. So you can see Aspilicueta's lines there are in green, Rudiger's are in the black colour, and then Alonso in yellow. So we can see that for Alonso, obviously much higher for goal attempts, then Rudiger, and then right back down for Aspilicueta. Goals, interestingly, we see them level on that. And we can then see in terms of the points, there's not actually a massive amount of difference between Alonso's points and Rudiger's points this season. And that's interesting to me because when we're talking about stability and when we're talking about this really nice run of fixtures, because remember, fundamentally, when we're investing in a defender, we're doing it because they're going to get clean sheets. So yes, you want this attacking threat, and yes, you want the opportunity for additional points, bonus points, assists and goals. Of course you do. But the bread and butter of a defender are those 6 points. So for me, that's something that is really important. It's something I'm looking for. So surety of starts, very, very important. We can see there Rudiger has got some bonus points, so is Marcos Alonso. Marcos Alonso has had substantially more. Aspilicueta, more big chances created. And then XGI is interesting because you can obviously see how Alonso and Aspilicueta are much higher for XGI than Rudiger is. So there are definitely pros and cons to owning both of them, or all 3 of them, to be honest. But I think for the purpose of this, we'll also couple in there. I've gone to the wrong screen. Couple in there Reece James as well, because at some point we are going to see some returns for Reece James, and therefore it's important that we kind of keep in mind all of these players when we're making our decisions. For me, I do think it comes down to a straight choice, really. Marcos Alonso offers great attacking threat. He is the sort of player that in seasons gone by they used to play against a slightly weaker opposition, the ones that offered more attacking threat and where you had to worry less about defending against them. But obviously we've seen this season that he has played him against the bigger clubs and he's done incredibly well. Now maybe in part that was through a lack of choice because Chilwell wasn't ready and available. And maybe now that Chilwell is ready and available, we might see a return of Alonso playing in the easier games and Chilwell playing in the more difficult ones. Having said that, with the fixtures the way that they are, that would mean a lot of game time for Alonso and not a lot of game time for Chilwell. So I don't see that happening. I do think these two are going to share minutes. Do I think one of them is going to get more minutes than the other? Well, almost certainly. I don't think it's likely that they're going to play every other game, but I do think they're going to share minutes, and that really puts me off at this moment in time. Obviously, both of them gone away on international duty, so that is something to keep an eye on in case something happens to either or of them whilst they are away with their subsequent countries. But right now, I think you have to rule both of them out because we cannot be sure, based upon what Tuchel did in Gameweek 7, which one of them is going to get the nod. And you do want players that are definitely going to get the nod. Of course, with Reece James, at the moment, still out with injury. Tuchel suggesting before he was supposed to go with England that he was nowhere near being ready for Chelsea. Something to keep an eye on, because if he does become available, he is going to be a player that we probably would want to invest in because he does have the security of starts more so on his side of the pitch, and obviously has that same level of attacking threat, well, near enough, that you get from Alonso and Chilwell on the other side. But without the fitness and without knowing the extent of that injury, he's again one that you can't go with, which basically leaves us with two, Rudiger and Aspella. Now, of course, last weekend, that was the decision that I was facing because the underlying stats are quite torn between the two of them. Both of them offer security as starts. Most of the time, Alonso's Aspella is going to get the full game. He might get a bit of rotation here or there, but I don't really see it because of the way that he can play in multiple positions in that defence. Rudiger is definitely most secure. But the underlying stats are conflicting because, of course, we've seen that Rudiger is higher in terms of goal attempts, but Aspella much higher in terms of penalty area touches. For me right now, it's still Rudiger. Even on the basis of what happened last week with Aspella getting the points return that he did, even with that in mind, I still think I would go Rudiger, because if we take away Game Week 7 and look at them across the course of the season up until that point, Rudiger does look like the best option. So, for me right now, if you're looking to invest in just one Chelsea defender going into this period of runs that they have, I'd be going Rudiger. If you do want to take your team a little bit away from template, then go for Aspella. Does have those penalty area touches, is more in the right positions than Rudiger is. I don't think you're going to want to go with Alonso or with Chilwell just yet, but keep an eye on Reece James and his return from injury, because it might be that actually go into this Chelsea fixture run with just the two Chelsea players in terms of Lukaku up top and Rudiger at the back, and then when Reece James is back and fully fit, he comes in as your third Chelsea player, and that gives you a really decent set of Chelsea players with real promise for returning over the course of the season. As I said at the beginning, I think right now, if you want to double up on any defence, have a little look at Cancelo and Diaz. I don't think you'll go much wrong with that Manchester City defence. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Would Rudiger be your Chelsea defender of choice? I think the underlying stats just tip it in his favour, but let me know in the comments below if you agree or if you disagree. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button. And we will be back with some more videos over international break, including, of course, the normal jammy pick and top points picks over the weekend. We will also have a video out on premiums and how to decide which premium pick to invest in. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.